Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward, and this is Face to Face. Our guest this week is hip-hop artist Sal Ibrahim, also known as MC Sly Skeeta. Sly is the son of an East African father and Ojibwe mother from Skowhegan First Nation in Manitoba. He has been nominated for an International Indigenous Hip Hop Award and co-hosted the 2022 event in Winnipeg. His latest single, Outer Space, was released in September of this year. Sly, thanks so much for being in studio with us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've spoken about how you had a difficult upbringing. Part of that from the intergenerational effects of the residential school system. Can you tell us about those formative years of your life?
Yeah, my father's from an East African country called Eritrea. It's a war-torn country, and he came to Canada in the 70s to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and as a refugee, and he met my mother, who is a Anishinaabe Ojibwe woman from Skowhegan First Nations, who relocated to Winnipeg. Prior to me being born and having my parents in Winnipeg, my mother was in residential schools. She did go to Pine Creek, which is up north, close to my mother's reserve in Skowhegan, as well as my Auntie Doreen, my Uncle Joe, and other family members. So, I know the experience for my family was really hard. They've experienced some really hardships, abuse, and the type of hurtful things that kids shouldn't have to go through, especially during those times. So I know that it's affected my mom in terms of being a parent towards me. So I had to experience being under a single parent household with my father being a single dad raising me. So you don't get that typical love that you should get from two parents in your life being raised in a household.
You've battled poverty and homelessness as a youth. Many people struggle to climb out from that. How were you able to?
I think it's, experiencing, being that intergenerational effect of residential schools. It's never easy, and I don't think I really even knew what was my mother was going through to be a parent, to be a strong woman, an Indigenous woman. You know what I mean? In my mind, the conflict as well is that my father didn't understand that my mom was in residential schools. I think it was more or less, my dad thought that my mom was unable to be a fit parent, or that she was not interested in being my life. So I think that culture shock of my dad being from Africa, and really had to push him harder to be a more strict dad. And when he came from a war-torn country, being a child soldier, it also affected his own parenting skills. Not willing to adapt to Western ways of how to discipline and how to raise your child. And I think he did the best job he could do in terms of laying down the rules, but at the same time it did affect me where I was being a rebellious teenager, and when you get to your teens and you're hitting puberty, you're growing to become this young man that I rebelled, and there was conflicts where under a single parent household that I didn't agree with the rules, or I didn't obey them, and the conflicts that came out of that was abusive as well. So it's I love my parents and how they raised me in terms of my stepmom had also played a role in raising me after my dad remarried, but it was for me, I had to be independent and find my own way. And so referring to being homeless and dealing with poverty, I experienced it any way a young teen would was, being with the wrong crowd, living place to place, staying at Salvation Army. I've, because you can only couch surf for so long where, people, friends of mine were unable to give me the lodging, you know what I mean? And I had to learn the hard way. And I think people could definitely have that experience go the wrong way in terms of, you could be a drug addict, you could be in jail, you could possibly even end up dead. But I'm a spiritual person, and I totally believe that, that Creator was looking out for me, and that, that I was able to get through that. And one of that ways was music, where, I didn't have anybody supporting me and backing me up, except the wrong kind of people. And so the pressures of being a teenager and trying to make it out of poverty, it became writing poetry, which became rhymes, which became making songs of what I experienced.
I was going to ask you who were some of the artists that influenced you, the type of hip-hop that you were listening to. I guess, outside of Biggie, Tupac, Jay-Z, were there other artists out there that really spoke to you in your youth? Oh, yeah, for sure. It's, I definitely have, an eclectic taste, just because I would definitely, commend my father for getting me into music, he was one of the first, Eritreans to come to Winnipeg, I would say, as an immigrant newcomer. And, with my dad, living in housing, he would have a lot of his fellow Africans coming along to socialize or study, and a lot of them would leave their records. And I would listen to my dad's record player and listening to Motown music. I grew up with, Jackson 5 and James Brown. And, even my dad had eclectic taste of listening to Bob Dylan and, different types of music. He taught himself how to play keyboard and guitar. So I think that influence of, from him definitely inspired me. But also listening to the beginnings of hip-hop music himself. I would listen to his cassette tapes and hearing Africa Bambaataa and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. But, my own, I guess, when I could say that growing up, besides Biggie and Tupac, would definitely be, definitely artists like Busta Rhymes. I really loved his cadence of doing double-time raps, spitting rapid-fire lyrics. And, definitely Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, it's, classic West Coast music that, from California that I definitely got to really get into. And as well as, I would definitely say probably about, down south music like Outkast. Mm-hmm. And, I was really into Southern kind of the beats productions of the artists from there. That 90s boom bap. Yeah, it all. Sly, much more to talk about here. We're just going to step aside for a quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face with MC Sly Skeeta. Stick around. Welcome back to Face to Face. Our guest this week is MC Sly Skeeta. And Sly, we've been talking about your upbringing and some of the music and your life that influenced the music that you make now. But was there a point in time, I guess, when you discovered that you could rap? Yeah, after being able to piece together poetry and rhymes, going through hard times. Hanging out in the streets of downtown with my crew, you get the feedback, like, oh, you said a dope line, or oh, these are really, you hit us with some really cool lyrics that that I realize, like this is something that I can do. I do have that potential. I'm getting that feedback from my peers, and it's. I think about Eminem in 8 Mile, in his upbringing, battling on the streets. So, you got to earn that reputation of, who has the better skills, who has that wordplay, and, making it as intricate or making it, having a style of really,
you know, punishing your opponents. So it's like, you know, it kind of came from that street level of being on the block and you know, kind of competing in a way where, you know, verbally to destroy your, you know, opponents and make them feel really bad. So, you know, in some ways you could say that's insulting, but some people would take it as a clever delivery. So, you know, from taking it from the streets to the stage, you know, I knew that, you know, that I had a potential to do something bigger than myself. You know what I mean? It's like I said, you know, when you're seeing superstars on magazines, or you know, dreaming about something better than yourself. You know, I think you know, we all want to get out of that poverty line and reach for success and do something bigger than ourselves. And you have high hopes.
You've played many different places, including, you know, like Australia, like we were talking off the set. Do you remember that first show, though, on a stage and how that went?
Yeah, you know, well, you know, like, so, you know, I got myself into a battle competition, and so there used to be a record store in Osborne Village called the Wax Museum. And yeah, you know, I found out there was a battle competition, that there was, you know, prizes, and you know, I kind of looked at it like, you know, this is me. This is something that I can do. And so at the time, you know, there were some pretty big, some big names that were affiliated with the competition. There was, you know, Garfield, he's known as Odario from Mood Rough, Elliot Ness, and John Smith. And some really, you know, from Peanuts and Corn. So at the time, you know, there was these people, artists that were affiliated with this battle. So it was like a citywide thing, and I was able to, for my first time, my artist name was actually Camouflage. And so I would wear fatigues, I would wear soldier clothes, and, you know, I kind of still do every now and then. But yeah, it was a great feeling. I got second place. And, you know, I knew that, you know, I was kind of like a diamond in the rough, where, you know, maybe I didn't win first place, but, you know, people could see that I did have, you know, something in me where I could, you know, I did have what it takes to be a really dope MC.
There seems like a pretty big Indigenous hip-hop scene here in Winnipeg. I guess, how would you describe the hip-hop scene here, and is it difficult in a city like Winnipeg to get noticed outside of city limits?
You know, it's, you know, we have our history. You know, when I think of, you know, when I think of one of the first groups that inspired me to do, you know, hip-hop music, would be Freak Show. Freak Show was, I believe, the first Winnipeg hip-hop group to get a music video on Much Music. So, you know, Much Music used to mean a lot to us, because that was our, you know, our visual way of seeing what was happening around the country, you know, through music, and, you know, our Canadian version of MTV. So, you know what I mean? So to see that, you know, you knew that there was, you know, a potential of us to break out from being local. And, you know, for me, I from what I've seen from the hip hops, it's kind of gone through waves where, you know, for me, when I went to shows, local shows, there was so much support. Everybody would come out. We would, you know, would have a huge crowd. You know, you can envision, you know, DJs. You know, what comes to mind would be you know, DJ Bunny. We used to have a show on Channel 11. Who would, you know, get to give us, you know, to see on TV outside of Much Music of local hip hop and reggae. But, you know, I mean, we do have you know, a scene here of Winnipeg hip-hop, and, you know, I like to say, like, the early beginnings has evolved. You know, I think now we have much more artists that are coming out, and, you know, it's definitely seen at its peak. You know, we used to have a native hip-hop radio station called Streets FM. And that was one of the first exposures for myself to have my music out, you know, and, you know, you kind of, there's both sides of the spectrum, where there's, you know, underground music, you know, trying to be the dopest MC, and then you got more of like the mainstream, right? So you got mainstream music was what you would see, that's more commercial style of hip hop. So, you know, I feel like I've been making that transition, but kind of like being able to weave through both styles. But yes, we've had, I think a lot of success. You see artists and groups as, Winnipeg's Most. You see groups such as the Lytics, like one of my inspirations, Mood Rough. They've, O'Dario has turned into, he's still doing music with Grand Analog, which is, what it came from Mood Rough. And, there's many more. And I feel like we're all it's hard because Winnipeg has been more of a rock and roll, country, folk music. I feel like, you know what I mean? And we're not a super huge city like Toronto or Vancouver and other cities, but we do have a hockey team. We have opportunities to do bigger things. So my focus was always about performing, doing talent shows, doing battles. But once I realized that I've kind of done as much as I can and performed at so many different venues, I wanted to go international. I wanted to break that barriers of okay, well, how far can I go? So, doing a Western Canadian tour, going as far as from Winnipeg to 2 shows in Banff to Fernie, BC, and going to Toronto, going out to perform out there, and going down to the U.S. I hit the open mic circuit in New York, which was a great experience because New York is the mecca of hip hop, so I knew that I needed to have that under my repertoire, and I've also been to Los Angeles, where I performed for the Fry Bread Festival, and that was an amazing experience as well. And I've also been to Australia, where I did a 3-city tour in 2018 and connected with the Indigenous people out there, and it was an amazing experience, and I definitely plan to go back.
One of the things that has brought attention to hip-hop in Winnipeg, but also greatly outside of the city limits, is the Indigenous Hip-Hop, or the International Indigenous Hip-Hop Awards. You've been a nominee. You co-hosted this past year, now in its 2nd year. I guess, was that some great recognition for yourself to be a nominee and a host of such a thing?
The International Indigenous Hip-Hop Awards was, I'd like to talk to it in past tense because it's still happening. We're still, I'm part of the team and part of this huge experience that has opened a lot of doors for not just myself, but our city. And it's been great because as an artist for myself, I consider myself an underdog. It's, what I mean? I've been looking for an opportunity like this to really break out and, get all the shine that I deserve because, like I said, it's been tough, as a struggling MC and music artist, that, you want to get out there and get as much exposure as you can. And that's really what it's been able to do, is help me level up and network, and, I've been able to be a host and to be nominated for music, they gave, put so many eyes on me, people able to check out my music and push me further and give me more bigger opportunities that I've never, didn't think that would ever happen.
Sly, we're going to talk about what's coming next for you. We just got to step aside for one more quick break, and then we'll continue the conversation here on Face to Face with Sly Skeeta. Stick around. Welcome back to Face. Our guest this week is MC Sly Skeeta. Sly, you've said you hope to release 2 albums, 2 full-length albums in the next 2 years. Can you tell us a bit about those plans?
Yeah, I'm busy at work in my studio, creating my next project. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be called The City Has Sly. It's my dedication to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Turtle Island here of, just showcasing my skills of really, I like to stay on cutting edge and really do, I feel that I can really, rip it up on any type of beat, so I really want to make sure that the production is as most contemporary as it can be. It's going to feature production from my boy Uchawi Beats out of Gatineau, Quebec. There might be a couple artists also that will be featured on it, but for the most part, it's going to be me and really just showing my progression as an artist. And my second project will be actually working on Afro beats project, getting to my African roots, and really I love making people dance just as much as I like to make people think. I like to call it edutainment. And I'm super hyped to show something different outside of hip hop. I think it's always my main artist name has always been Diverse before Sly Skeeta, but finding out that there's other artists that have that name in the States, I've come to use Sly. So I'm excited for those projects, as well as I'm working on a tour with, in conjunction with the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards and Motto Workspace, where I'll be doing workshops with First Nations youth, performing my music, and helping our communities get into music.
Sounds exciting. We're short on time here, but you're talking about getting into communities and stuff. You've spoken about wanting to learn Anishinaabe, and visit with the youth, bring your music to them. Why is that important for you to get youth involved in your music as well?
Well, it's for like myself, I didn't really grow up with my indigenous traditional ways. I grew up with more of my African side. So, it's being reunited with my culture, and on my mother's side, my Ojibwe side, it's important for me to stay connected. I have three beautiful kids, and that I want to break that cycle and teach them as well of where they come from and be proud of who they are, but also as well being an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and children, men and boys, which my mom has instilled in me to be an activist. So, whether it's Every Child Matters March and protest that, I support these things. I'm a voice of the people, and I want to empower our youth for First Nations on reserves to get involved in music, to get away from doing bad things. I know that the resources aren't there as much to get into music, so they may feel like this is not possible, but I'm about breaking those barriers, standing up for them, and as well as I feel like we're losing our language, so Anishinaabe, our people, it'd be cool to really make our language contemporary, mainstream, where we, what I mean? Like when you think of like reggaeton or Latino music, you hear like Daddy Yankee's Rompe or Gasolina. I wanna be able to make our songs in the clubs, where people can dance to it, make it cool, make it fun to learn our language and incorporate that, as well as, just keeping that alive where, our kids and our youth can look up and say, hey, it's pretty awesome to see being done.
That is pretty awesome. All great stuff, Sly. We wish you all the best on those endeavors, and thanks for coming by and doing the show this week.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate coming, and I just want to give a big shout out to all my supporters. Much love to my mod squad. Much love to all my East Africans from Eritrea, and to all the First Nation youth. You follow your dreams, no matter how hard it takes. Just keep believing in yourself and never giving up, and you never stop learning. And as well as always invest in yourself. That's the number one thing. Is always you've got to invest in yourself, and no matter how hard it takes, just keep reaching for success and keep going for the stars.
Great parting words. Of course, you can also look for Sly's new music and find his current music on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube, all the usual spots. Thanks again, Sly. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this week, but you can catch up on any episodes you may have missed by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. And of course, this episode and all of our past episodes are also available as podcasts. You can find those wherever you download your podcasts. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in to Face to Face. Have a great night. We'll see you back here next week.